7 sticky notes up right now. Like you can't even see half of them because they're covering each other. So I think having that one thing that I can walk into the office every morning and look at and say, these are the 4 things I really want to get done, that will stop me from, I have that, entrepreneur shiny object syndrome thing where I get really excited and want to jump around from project to project to project, but that leaves you with a bunch of half-finished projects and no money. So I need to pick those ones that I really care about finishing and make those the top of the list, because then I can slowly transition into what I'm thinking of as the next phase of my business, where right now I'm doing kind of hours for dollars. That's essentially what freelancing is. And I'm not paid hourly by anybody, but essentially it's, butt in chair time is how I make money. I want to shift that to, I have a course that will make me money when I'm not at the computer, or a product or an app that will make me money when I'm not at the computer. Mm-hmm. So to get those types of projects done, they don't just happen instantly. I'm working on learning how to code better so I can do some of them myself. I outsource some of it, but ultimately you have to get those things done, and having a bunch of half-finished projects doesn't help anybody. So putting those in front of me, I think is going to help a lot on a day-to-day basis.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm in that same half-finished project boat right now myself. So throughout your career, and especially what you've done recently in the last year, it's there's got to be areas where you felt some kind of fear, especially the moment you quit your job, went to what you're doing now full time, and moved your family across the lower half of the country.
1,200 miles away.
Yeah, 1,200 miles away. How do you think about and approach fear and things that you're nervous about, and how do you overcome them?
A lot of it, I try to frame it differently in my head. Instead of thinking of it as a fear, I look at it as a challenge or an obstacle. Because if it's a fear, it's hard to conquer a fear. You can't beat a fear. I mean, let's say you're afraid of sharks. You could go swimming with sharks, I guess, but that doesn't mean you beat sharks. But if you're afraid of some kind of obstacle or failure in business, by turning it upside down and looking at it as something you can win or something you can beat, for me, that's been it's a huge mental thing that helps me overcome obstacles. I don't think that'll ever make me want to play with brown recluse spiders. I have these really weird specific fears. Some people are just afraid of spiders. I'm not afraid of spiders. I'm afraid of 2 really specific kinds of spiders. I'm weird like that. I'm afraid of brown recluse spiders in North America and funnel web spiders if I'm in Sydney, Australia. I've never been to Australia, but I know when I go there, look out for funnel webs. They're scary. Australia has the scariest wildlife in the world. I have my wife has a cousin who lives there. I hope we get to go visit. They're just about to have a baby in Melbourne, so I really want to go. But I'm so afraid of all the things that can kill me in Australia. It's there's a jellyfish in Australia. It's an inch tall that if it stings you and you don't get vinegar on it in 2 minutes, you'll die. That's crazy to me. Why would you ever go swimming in Australia? And there's great white sharks. You got both of them. And then you come back to the beach and there's a funnel web spider hiding in your shoe. It's they even got the crocodile hunter. Come on.
It's true. I've seen those online videos about just how much the animals in Australia are trying to kill you.
But I have some great friends who are successful entrepreneurs from Australia. So actually, I have in my pocket right now, really funny timing, I have 2 inch tall rubber chickens. And they were sent to me by a friend, Brad Finkeldye. He's a life coach and career coach. And we worked on a project together, and he sent me 2, one for me, one to give away to a friend. And he said, anytime you're afraid of something, look at this silly little rubber chicken in your pocket, which he drew little hearts on, and use that to remind you to lean into your fears. Don't let them deflect you from doing something. So one's for me to keep, and one is to give to someone who inspires me. So I've been carrying these 2 chickens around in my pocket for a week, trying to find the inspirational person to give the other one to. But it's a fun concept, right? If you see something that's afraid that you would prevent you from a success, just dive in, because it's not going to go away if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like the idea of carrying a chicken or just some kind of silly object in your pocket that makes you realize that your fear is probably also just as silly.
Yeah, my friend became the rubber chicken guy. I think that's his Instagram handle now, the rubber chicken guy. And he has pictures of him giving rubber chickens to people all over the country. It's pretty cool.
That's a really cool thing to be known for. Good for him. What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah, so the best advice I've ever received, I've gotten over my life lots of advice. I mentioned my grandpa earlier. I think it was my 8th birthday. He gave me a general ledger book for my birthday present, so I could start writing down every time I made money and spent money. I don't think that's something most 8-year-olds are into. I know I wasn't. I don't think I ever filled out a line on that. But the lessons that came along with it were really important. But the number one advice I think I ever got, I had this professor a couple times when I was at the University of Colorado, Dr. Gross. And when we were doing one of our classes, we were learning about the time value of money, which for finance people, that's the most basic core thing in finance. But for everybody else, they're like, holy crap, that's this giant formula that you need calculus. And I hate calculus. So what he said, we were learning this, and a bunch of us figured out it wasn't all that hard. And he said, this isn't very difficult, but most people don't know how to do it, so they're going to be willing to pay you a lot of money to do it for them. I think that might be the best advice I've ever got, because in my business and any business that you have, you don't have to be doing something so crazy and spectacular like Elon Musk shooting off rockets to the moon and rebuilding our power grid. You could just come up with something that makes people's life a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And as long as they're willing to pay you to do it, that's awesome, even if it's not hard. It's not difficult to do a time value money calculation. I could amortize a mortgage in under 20 seconds. Probably almost anyone with a finance degree should be able to do that. But most people don't know how to amortize a mortgage. They're like, what? Amortize? That's even, the word is difficult. So, but knowing that that's something I can do really easily and get paid for, to me, writing articles about personal finance isn't that hard. I've been doing it for about a decade. I know how to write about bank accounts and credit cards and checking and all this stuff, getting out of debt. But for a lot of people, that is incredibly difficult stuff and totally out of their wheelhouse. Like we were saying in the beginning, you don't learn this in school. This is something that I had to go to school for 6 years to learn how to do, plus all these jobs. So because I know how to do it, people are willing to pay me a bunch to do it. Mm-hmm. So as I always challenge, I just spoke at, I mentioned TBEX. I spoke at TBEX on how to take your side hustle from part-time to full-time. And I said, there is something out there that you know more about than anybody else. There's got to be one thing. It could even be competitive duck herding. It doesn't have to be something that you think is that's actually a thing. I found I was like, wow, there was a competitive duck herding blog. I'm like, but you know what? There are people out there who care about that. Yeah. And the one person who knows more about it than anyone else could become the leader of that community and turn that into a profitable business. So while I don't care about competitive duck herding, this is a tongue twister, there are people who do. So whatever that thing is that you love and are passionate about and care about more than anyone else, you can do what Gary Vaynerchuk did. Gary V, what made him so famous. He started making these crazy wine videos, and that blew him up into this giant media personality. But it all started with he cared more about wine and knew more about wine than almost anyone else, and was willing to put himself out there and talk about it on the internet. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a big fan of his style personally. I read Crush It. I thought there was some useful information in it, but I'm not a huge fan of his writing and his style personally. But as a business, he's brilliant. What he does is a business mind. Gary V he figured it out. You just have to build a community, become a leader of something that you know about, and write about it or make videos about it or tweet about whatever your place is. Pat Flynn, smartpassiveincome.com, he's a great guy. His strategy, he says, be everywhere, but only be somewhere that you can commit to do a good job. Mm-hmm. So, anytime you want to pick something up new where you're taking that thing you know so much about and you're teaching people about it or becoming a leader in that or a thought leader in that, make sure you're going to do a good job where you put stakes in on your little corner of the internet or the world, because that's what people will see when they Google you and find you. So do a good job at it. But you could make a living doing anything.
That's a good point. And I actually remember Gary Vaynerchuk's videos. I was living in New York at the time, and I used to watch his wine library videos when I was commuting on the subway from my job back home, and it was great because I was learning. I appreciated his like natural and just kind of relaxed view of wine. Like it didn't feel like it was like this highfalutin thing. He spoke like everyone else did and was like, this is how I think of this wine, and it made wine at least more accessible for me. So it was great watching his early stuff, and then I can see what he's doing now. But awesome. So Eric, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you chatting with me. If the listeners would like to see more about you and hear more about what you're working on, what is the best way they can do that?
Sure. So the best place to find me online is my blog and podcast, Personal Profitability. If you go to personalprofitabilitypodcast.com, it's a lot of P's, I know, in there. That'll take you right to my podcast. You could subscribe if you like, or you could check out the blog, those income reports I mentioned. Hopefully you'll go on there, you'll find something, you'll learn it, and there's a contact form, or easy to find me on Twitter. I'm Eric Profits on Twitter. Shoot me a note if you have any questions or just want to say hi.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I will put those links in the show notes so people can click right through.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Of course. Thank you so much, Eric. Have a great day. This has been fantastic.
Bye, everybody. See you later.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Advance Your Art podcast. If you like this episode, please go into iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so that every single time I release a new episode, it will go directly to you without even thinking about it. If you're interested in hearing older episodes, please go to advanceyourart.com where you can find the catalog of everything I've done so far, as well as contact information and projects I'm working on. Thank you again, and have a great day.